Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us today for the second of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign's series of webinars. We're looking at the impact of Israel's genocidal assault on children and educators in Palestine today. Now, tonight we're joined by an absolutely fantastic panel of speakers, including trade unionists and educators from Palestine, who are going to speak to us about their experiences organising on the ground during this latest horrific assault, as well as how we can extend our own solidarity work with Palestinian educators and children who make up over half of all deaths in Gaza over the last 5 months. Now, I want to start just by sort of reminding us that as educators, truth and clarity are values absolutely fundamental to our vocation. We must be clear about what is happening in Palestine right now, and we must never be afraid to voice the truth of the Palestinian people, who are currently undergoing one of the most targeted and sustained military assaults in recent history. The Israeli government is carrying out a genocide in full view of the world. It's a genocide enforced with British support, with British money, and with British bombs. The scenes that we're witnessing in Gaza will stay with us all for the rest of our lives. And, just as importantly, for those of us who are educators here in the UK, those scenes will stay with our students for the rest of their lives. It's no coincidence that the government is currently intensifying its attempts to stop us from teaching about the injustices of the British Empire at the same time it steps up its support for the Israeli war machine. They know that every time they intimidate us into avoiding discussion of historic empire and colonialism, they strengthen the modern-day colonial violence of Israel and other settler states. It's our job to stand up to and push back against this assault on our collective rights. We have to keep in mind that at the heart of the government's repression of protests on the streets and of free discussion in our classrooms is not strength, but fear. Because despite the government and academy sponsors' attempts to police, our students' discussion in schools and universities, our students carry the cause of Palestine deeply. They know what injustice looks like. They also carry with them the traditions of solidarity that have been nurtured in our communities for generations. As educators, we have so much to learn from our students, but it's also on us to help them understand that they are not powerless, that power is collective, and that together we can remake the world. We can, and we will, bring about freedom in Palestine and across the globe. Now, with that in mind, it's a real honour to introduce our first speaker. She's the president of the National Education Union here in the UK, representing 500,000 education workers from across the country. Please welcome Emma Rose. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you so much, Neha, and it is a real honour to be here with you this evening. As you said, I'm Emma Rose. I'm the National President of the National Education Union, and we are here today. I'm representing my union today, bringing solidarity from the National Education Union with Palestinian children and educators in particular. And I'm really proud to be representing my union at this vital meeting. This meeting couldn't be more timely, as it's been reported that Israeli forces have destroyed the headquarters of the Palestine General Federation of Trade Unions, and we will be following up this with our trade union partners to see what support we can give. And we stand in solidarity, especially with our brothers and sisters in the General Union of Palestinian Teachers. At the NEU, we have a long-standing friendship and a long-standing association with the GUPT. Twice a year, we take delegations of our members to Palestine, and this is a real core and integral part of our international solidarity work. And we know that educators and children in Palestine need our solidarity more than ever. We know that of the over 30,000 people killed in Gaza since early October, the majority of those have been women and children. And as an educator, when I hear those numbers and I think back over my teaching career and of all the faces of the children I've taught, I think sometimes we can hear the numbers and people become desensitized to those numbers. But as an educator, I think of the face of every child that I've taught, and it doesn't even come close to that number of children who have been killed in Gaza. And that absolutely horrifies me. And as an education union, when we talk about the right of all children to an education, that doesn't stop at our borders. And when we're seeing the number of children being killed, the number of children being displaced with no homes left to return to, the number of children starving, the number of children being amputated with no anaesthetic, the number of teachers being killed, the number of children who are unable to attend school at the moment. There is no education taking place in Palestine and Gaza at the moment. When I hear about the number of children who are WCNSF, when I heard that acronym, it horrified me. Wounded child, no surviving family. When we hear about these figures, when we think about these children, when we think about these educators, as an education union, we absolutely cannot stand by, and we absolutely cannot stay silent. And we are really clear as an education union that when we say we stand in solidarity with educators, with children, and with the Palestinian people. We know that there has to be an action. It cannot just be a word, and that has to run through the core of every single thing that we do. Just like Neha was saying, we know that our members will potentially feel anxious talking about issues around Palestine in their schools. We know that some of our members will have been targeted for raising these issues. We know that there will be anxiety around talking about the truth. But we believe that when we are educators, we educate for peace, and we educate and we teach the truth. And that is so vital at the moment, that as educators in our workplaces and within our spaces like this, we tell the truth, we talk about what's happening, and we hold that space open, because with children and educators in Palestine need us to be doing that. They need us to amplify their voices, talk about what's happening, and talk about the truth, what's happening. So as I said, that when we talk about solidarity with educators and children in Palestine, we know that can't just be an empty word. It can't just be something that we say and we don't do. So I just wanted to talk about some of the things that we've been doing with our members around Palestine. One thing that we've done is we've produced advice and guidance for our members on how to talk about Palestine with their classes. How our children will be hearing things in the news. They'll be worried, they'll want to talk about it. But as I said, often our members won't feel confident. So we've produced guidance to help them talk about that, to have those conversations, to hold that space open, to talk about with their children, and to talk about it within their union meetings. We want our members on the Workplace Day of Action. We've promoted that with our members. We've encouraged our members to hold meetings on the Workplace Day of Action in solidarity with people in Palestine. We've encouraged our members to hold workplace meetings. We've shared the video from the General Union of Palestinian Teachers, and we've said, show this in your workplace meeting and start talking about it, because we have to hold that space open and we have to be having those discussions. We've launched a fundraiser with Save the Children, and we have produced model motions for our districts to take that to their district, to raise money, to donate money through the Save the Children Gaza appeal. And we think that's really important, because we know that our brothers and sisters in Palestine and Gaza are really struggling at the moment, and they need our solidarity in terms of material support as well. We've been promoting the National Day of Actions. We've been sending out emails to our members, promoting it through our district structures, asking our members to get involved in that workplace of Day of Action, even if it's something as what seemingly small as meeting up in the staff room, or going out into the playground at lunchtime and taking a selfie, holding up Ceasefire Now banners. We have to be making that call for a ceasefire as loud as we can, and that can't underestimate every single action that gets that word out there, that gets the message out there, that builds the call for the ceasefire, that brings people together, that amplifies that message, cannot be underestimated. So we've been encouraging our members to take place in the Workplace Day of Action that have been ongoing since October. We've brought our international solidarity officers together within our districts. We try and encourage as many international solidarity officers as possible. We've held online meetings for them to bring them together to talk how you can bring this up in your district, how you can talk about it in your district, and how you can get involved in the campaign for Palestinian rights and Palestinian solidarity. We've been encouraging our members to attend the national demonstrations that PSC have been organising, because we think that visible presence on the street is really important. Putting our bodies in that space, calling for the ceasefire, putting pressure on our politicians is really important. And we think our attendance there and our presence there visibly is really, really important. I'm going to wrap up now because I'm conscious I'm running out of time and I want to hear from everyone else. We've circulated guidance on prevent and how members can push back on if they feel their voices are being squashed. We've built up resources that our members can use in their workplaces to teach the truth. And yeah, we are putting as much pressure as we can locally on our MPs, on our councillors to change the narrative. So yeah, being part of this space, bringing the trade unions together is so important, building that solidarity with Palestine, sending our voices of solidarity with educators and children in Palestine. And I'm really proud to be here representing the National Education Union, and you are assured of our continued solidarity and work alongside you. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Emma. It's great to hear about what the NEU have been doing, and thank you for your continued work and your continued support of Palestinian liberation. Our next speaker, now we're incredibly privileged to have our next speaker with us tonight. She's a member of the General Secretariat of the General Union of Palestinian Teachers. Please welcome Iman Al-Shayeb. Iman, thank you so much for lending us your time today.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you, Emma, for your presentation. My name is Iman Al-Shayeb. I am a General Secretariat of the General Union of the Palestinian Teacher. First of all, I want to thank you all for your solidarity with our educators and children who have been affected by the Israeli attacks in Gaza Strip and West Bank. And we hope that your voice will reach the whole world in order to be able to end this savage attack on our people. Here, I'm going to talk about the situation in education on Gaza Strip and West Bank. As you know, there are different regions in Palestine. First of all, I'm going to talk about Gaza. The question here, what is left of the educational system in Gaza? Educational life in Gaza Strip has almost completely stopped since the start of the aggression. There are 620,000 students who continue to be deprived of attending their schools because of the severe damage to the educational process since the beginning of the aggression, the 7th of October, 2023. Our people are being killed and tortured by the occupation. This is a war on children. It's a war on our women, the old people. It's a war on innocence. More than 80% of the of the population in Gaza has been displaced, and they are in the situation that doesn't allow them to work or to learn, as they suffer from hunger, thirst, cold, lack of internet, and lack of electricity. 255 teachers, in addition to more than 5,500 students, were killed. In Gaza Strip only, more than 10,000 students and teachers were wounded, not to mention the disabilities among them. This number is increasing every moment because of the continuous attack. 90% of the schools in Gaza have been completely or partially destroyed, as we have 286 public schools and we have 65 UNRWA schools were bombed or destroyed or damaged completely. The schools which have survived the war until now, there are some schools, about 133 schools who survived the war, have been turned into shelter centers for displaced Palestinian people because they don't have any places to stay in. Gaza Strip has become the most dangerous place for children in the world, and that no place is safe there. It's worth to mention here that our Ministry of Education in Ramallah communicated with Gaza Strip, with the Gaza student who left Gaza to live in other countries at the time of a truce. And they integrated them to West Bank schools and linked them with the educational process to receive the distance education. They were distributed to various directorates of education, and they grouped them as virtual schools and started teaching them according to the educational packages by teachers who volunteered to do that after school time. Even the universities in West Bank started to integrate students from Gaza to have a free education. And the situation in the West Bank is no better. The attacks of the colonists expanded to affect schools in a clear targeting of educational institutions with the support of the occupation government, which is working to implement the widest process of ethnic cleansing of our people and replacing it with the colonists, especially after they were armed to become more criminal. And because of that, 57 schools were forced to attend electronically for their presence in the areas of frictions and with the occupation and with the colonists. Attacks on schools, especially we have about 32 challenge schools, which are located in Area C, aim to force citizens to leave their land because the schools make our people standing in their land, on their land, in the areas of resistance, which is contrary to the occupation policy, which sees Area Cs as a main objective to be included to the occupation state. And this what makes the colonists carry out their attacks against the educational institutions and schools in order to displace them. Our children, our teachers, and administrative educational staff in the West Bank also are killed, wounded, and arrested by the Israeli soldiers and the colonists who are protected by the soldiers. We have 48 students who were killed in the West Bank. We have 305 students and 6 teachers were injured. 97 students and 73 teachers and administrative employees at the Ministry of Education directories were arrested until this moment, and the number is increasing every day. The financial crisis also, which is faced by the Palestinian National Authority, has also cast a shadow over all the vital sectors, including the educational sector, which make it unable for the national authority to fulfill its obligations towards its employees, including teachers, which prompt them to take a number of steps, including a strike, refraining from going to schools, which is harmful to the educational process. Israel is the main cause to the financial crisis suffered by the national authority, due to the seizure of the clearing funds or deducting large amount of it under many excuses. Clearing funds are taxes collected by the Israel on behalf of the Palestinian National Authority and charged for this 30% under the Paris Economic Protocol, constitute about 60% of the authority's total monthly revenues. So our salaries in the West Bank and Gaza are taken from these revenues, which is called the clearing. To be able to help our children, a ceasefire is essential. When we talk about education, we talk about the whole system. And it's absolutely impossible to put this system back in place without a long-term humanitarian ceasefire. Returning to normal life in Gaza will take a long time because the damage is extensive. The most difficult thing that the educational processes will face after the war end, inshallah, is preparing the students psychologically, emotionally, and healthily, as many of them suffer from psychological shocks and face difficult health conditions, and many of them have lost their friends, their families, and their houses. Despite these severe and savage attacks and practices by the occupation, we believe that Palestine will be free, and we will live in peace one day. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Iman. It's so heartbreaking to hear about the conditions that you and your colleagues and your students are forced to endure, but it's also, so incredibly inspiring to hear that through all of that, you're still organizing.
The situation on land is more difficult than one can hear.
Of course, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us today. Before we move on to our next speaker, I just want to quickly draw attention to an event that's taking place on Saturday, the 23rd of March in London. It's an event hosted by the NEU London region, but sponsored by lots of different NEU regions across the country. And it's an educators conference for Palestine. So it's, teachers, educators coming together with workshops on curriculum, resources, on prevent, on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, coming together to sort of strengthen our campaigning and solidarity. So please, if you're an education worker, do consider attending what seems like it will be a really helpful and hopefully really hopeful event. Our next speaker is the president of the University and College Union, representing over 125,000 lecturers and university staff across the UK. Please welcome Justine Mercer. Thank you so much for being with us today, Justine.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an absolute privilege to speak at this webinar. As you said, Naha, we have 125,000 workers in the United Kingdom in post-16 education, in higher education, further education, adult and community education, and prison education. And there are 6 brief points to what I want to say today. Further details of everything I'm going to talk about can be found together on UCU's updated website, which has, I think you'll agree, a very apposite title, ucu.org.uk/ceasefire now. And that website is regularly updated with resources and events. The first thing to say is that UCU, from the outset and for 4 months now, has mobilised for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. We have supported national and local marches. We have asked members to sign a parliamentary petition calling for an immediate ceasefire. Our General Secretary and myself and many members have spoken at marches. UCU banners have been very visible at all of them, I believe. And we've also supported the workplace days of action that have been organised regularly. Secondly, because we are an education union, we've been working closely with Palestinian educators and their advocates. We know that many university buildings have been completely destroyed by Israeli military strikes. Hundreds of educators have been killed. Thousands of Palestinian students have had their education completely disrupted. So we have been asking members to sign a parliamentary motion that is asking the government to take action and create a visa scheme. What we're saying is that all of the measures that were put into place by the UK and other governments with respect to the Russian invasion of Ukraine should be fast-tracked and apply equally to Palestinian academics and students impacted by the war in Gaza. For us, the necessity is every bit as acute, and it should be possible to do all of these things equally as fast for Palestine as we saw happen for Ukraine. Thirdly, we've been asking members to donate to MAP, the medical aid for Palestine, to their emergency appeal for Gaza. We've also been, fourthly, asking members to boycott Barclays because Barclays Bank is complicit in the genocide. Fifthly, we have been very vocal as a union in defending academic speech, and particularly members who are speaking out on behalf of Palestine. We have written to the UK government in this regard. We have produced updated guidance for members who are under attack for speaking out. I had the privilege of speaking at an event last month with the Palestinian ambassador that was organised by UCU, so University College London branch of UCU. The event was entitled Campus Voices for Palestine, and it's intended to be part of a series that protects, as far as we are able, those who are speaking out against the war in Gaza and in defense of Palestine. The final thing that I want to draw attention to, which I think may perhaps be unique with respect to the university sector, is around pension funds and university contracts with external parties. So we are asking members to write to the management of their institution to make sure that they are speaking out against the educide that's being committed in Gaza, and to offer their commitment that when the time comes, they will support urgent reconstruction and the long-term rebuilding of Palestinian education. We want our institutions to be completely clear. None of their partnerships, their international partnerships or funding arrangements or investments are with any of those institutions and corporations that are abiding and abetting Israelis' plausibly genocidal acts in Gaza. We have a university pension scheme entitled USS, where we believe much more could be done by the Board of Trustees to make sure that the USS pension investments are not with companies that could be complicit in the war in Gaza. And we do think that is something where our members, both in their universities in particular and in the USS pension scheme, they will be able to speak out and make sure that we are not in partnership with supporters of the regime. I want to end by saying that UCU supports, as we have done from the outset, an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, an enduring peace, and crucially, comprehensive reconstruction of Gaza, materially, of course, but also, as Iman highlighted so eloquently, psychologically, because the psychological damage to our educators, to our students, and to our young people, I misspeak, I should have said the Palestinian educators, young people and students, the psychological damage is immense. Solidarity to you all.
Thank you so much, Justine. And I think that last point at the end about, doing our best from outside of Palestine to make sure that all of our institutions, cut all of their ties with any companies that are complicit in the ongoing genocide and the occupation is extremely important. So thank you for reminding us of that. Our fourth speaker is now Samia El-Botmeh, an assistant professor in economics at Birzeit University. Samia, thank you so much for giving up your time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. As my colleague Iman explained a minute ago, education is highly significant for the Palestinians. We've always invested in school education and university education. And all along, Israel has been targeting the education sector viciously. Ever since 1967, the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, education has been targeted with policies to undermine infrastructure, to undermine the lives of the educators and the students. For Israel to target education in a way is logical as a colonial power, because ignorance is the friend of colonialists. Through ignorance, our narrative can be suppressed, our mechanisms of solidarity can be also suppressed. And this is why Israel's targeting education has always been vicious. And we see it now in Gaza, in the ongoing genocide, the number of schools destroyed, the number of universities, actually the entire number of Palestinian universities in Gaza, the 19 universities, 19 higher education institutions have been destroyed. So we have a destruction of infrastructure, we have a destruction to the lives of educators and students. And all of these, of course, are estimates. 90 over 95 educators, university educators, have been murdered in the Gaza Strip throughout this genocide, and over 400 university students as well. So all these numbers that we narrate and we also see on TV are not just numbers. Those are not figures. Those are colleagues. Those are children. They are the sons and daughters of families. These colleagues that have been killed, they have made immense contributions to scholarly work. They are scientists, doctors, social scientists, engineers, and so on. So they're not a loss to the Gaza Strip or Palestine. They're actually a loss to humanity. Each and every child and person, educator in the Gaza Strip is a loss to humanity. For us, we see education as a mechanism for resistance, as a mechanism for liberation. And this is why we tend to have extremely high enrollment rates in our schools, and also very high enrollment rates at universities, especially for women. Palestinian women tend to be the highest educated actually in the region compared to the rest of the region, but also compared to men. And this comes at the backdrop of a culture that, for us, education is a mechanism of survival, i.e. surviving colonialism, surviving apartheid, surviving oppression, but also it's a mechanism for liberation and resistance. Israel has been intensely targeting education, not just in the Gaza Strip, but also in the West Bank. In the West Bank, we have been teaching since the beginning of the first term, since October, we have been teaching electronically. And we've been teaching electronically because many of our students cannot, and staff actually, cannot get to university. Many of our students have been imprisoned under administrative detention, which basically allows Israel to detain students and staff for long periods of time without charging them with anything, 6 months, and then this 6 months is renewed again and again, limitlessly. Students are targeted at checkpoints and arrested. At the moment, within my university, Birzeit University, we have more than 150 students in prison and 4 staff members. Many of these students actually are members of the student union. So the student union of the university is targeted, as it's considered as a political body, not just a student union. And this is why all the students working within that body are targeted, not just at Birzeit University, but across Palestinian universities in the West Bank. There also has been an intensification in barriers, checkpoints, any form of movement barriers within the West Bank. And this actually disrupts students from arriving at their schools and universities. And also it makes the journey to school a life-threatening experience, because very much of the time going from point A to point B is extremely dangerous. If you go within your area or you leave your area, that's even worse. This attack on education in Palestine, we've termed it as scholasticide, which is basically the destruction to the infrastructure of education, universities, schools, kindergartens, the killing of student and staff has also been an issue, not just in this ongoing genocide, but also before that. And the targeting of education in terms of our capacity to choose our curriculum, our capacity to narrate our narrative, all of this has been targeted by Israel and termed as scholasticide. So the conditions of education are difficult, and yet for us as Palestinians, we see education as an important mechanism in our lives, and we will continue to build and rebuild the education sector and move forward. We do appreciate solidarity, and we do see it on TV, and colleagues in the Gaza Strip also see the demonstrations, see the activities, and they are heartened by the solidarity. It's important to know that your solidarity actually makes a difference to people's lives, although it's an really, I don't know what term to use, but it's an impossible existence for Gaza. But still, it's important that people have a sense that they are not forgotten. People around the world are standing in solidarity with them. Yet we need to translate this solidarity into forms of pressure on governments, on the UK government, across Europe, North America, and the rest of the world. This pressure should not just give us a humanitarian pause. We want to put an end to the genocide in Gaza. That should be our request. Bringing in humanitarian assistance is important, of course, it's life-saving, yet putting an end to this process of genocide is as important as temporary interventions. It's also important to keep up the pressure on the streets through demonstrations and through asking Parliament, lobbying your members of Parliament with this regard, but also through various activities within the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Israeli academia is actually complicit in the process of colonization, apartheid, and the various wars actually on Gaza, including this genocide. Israeli academia actually very much designs interventions. It cooperates with the army on certain interventions. It cooperates with the army on developing weaponry. It also defends the activities or defends the atrocities in the Gaza Strip. Legalists, draft articles and papers in defense of the use of internationally banned weaponries. Academics justify that Israel should be above the law. Israel should kill and murder without any questioning. And this is why it's important to put pressure on this institution, not just the academia, but also the economy and any form of sport, any form of culture that comes from Israel, till Israel actually abides by international law. And this means that through BDS, you can have a personal contribution through economic boycotts. You can have a more profound intervention through pushing for academic, cultural, and economic boycotts, divestment from Israeli companies, from companies that also cooperate with the occupation. Do not underestimate the significance of these interventions. I would call upon you as well to stand in solidarity with Gaza and the West Bank through cooperation with schools, with the universities, Israel imposes on both West Bank and Gaza Strip a siege that is aimed at, in a way, separating us from the broader community of educators around the world. And this is why it's important to encourage a process of cooperation through student exchanges, through teacher exchanges, and through the educator research activities. Upon the end of the current genocide, we all have to come together to rebuild Gaza. And rebuilding the education sector, as my colleagues earlier mentioned, is not just about buildings and infrastructure. It's about enabling an environment whereby educators and students can have a sense of normality. The trauma that we will have to deal with and the support that we will have to provide for Gaza will actually be part of our humanity as peoples around the world. Till then, I hope the pressure continues to put an end to the current genocide, and we look forward to working with colleagues around the world on rebuilding Gaza, and more importantly, ending colonization and apartheid that has been plowing our lives, that had basically ran our lives for the past 75 years. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Samia. We also look forward to, rebuilding once this current genocide is over alongside you. And we all very, very much look forward to the day where the Palestinians win their freedom from colonialism, apartheid, and everything that you're currently going through. Thank you also for speaking so powerfully about the impact of the BDS movement. One of the targets that we're, I guess, particularly targeting as the Palestine Solidarity Campaign in the UK is Barclays Bank. Now, lots of people don't know, but Barclays holds over £1 billion in shares and provides a further £3 billion in loans and underwriting to arms companies whose weapons, components, and military technology are used by Israel every day in its devastating attacks at the moment. And so we at the Palestine Solidarity Campaign are calling for a mass boycott of all Barclays services until the bank ends its complicity in Israel's genocidal attacks on Palestinians. So one of the things that we're calling on everyone to do is, if you have a Barclays account, pledge to close it on the 20th of March. Stand up for Palestinians. Show your material support for an end to the genocide. The other thing that Samia mentioned was, the impact that the demonstrations that we've been hosting, as well as other actions that we've been running, has. But obviously, we need your support to continue all of that solidarity work. Planning those demonstrations takes, a lot of time, a lot of manpower, and, unfortunately, a lot of money. Please excuse my cat, I'm sorry. And so if you are a member of a trade union, you can get your branch to affiliate to the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. As an individual, you can join and become a member of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. I believe all the links for this will be in the chat in a second. And if you'd like to help us continue our work, you could also make a donation to the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Thank you. I'm now going to pass over to the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Louise Reagan, who is also on the national executive of the NEU. Louise, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thanks, Neha, and thank you so much for chairing this meeting this evening. And it's amazing to be on a panel of women educators all talking about the situation in Palestine. So I'm really proud to be here as an educator, but also as the chair of Palestine Solidarity Campaign. I won't talk about the current situation. Our speakers have all covered that very eloquently. We all know the devastating impact of the current assault on Gaza, but also the impact that is having across the West Bank. And I think it's important that we as educators, as all people have said, continue to speak out about what is happening, continue to empower young people to talk about that in our schools. But alongside that, there's been huge attacks over the past week on Palestine Solidarity Campaign and our partners, and we have to keep fighting back against that. We have today issued a statement from our trade union partners, and trade union partners on this call have signed up to that statement, which condemns the attacks, saying that trade unionists shouldn't be working with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. PSC is a campaign which has for decades, been campaigning against the occupation and in support of the Palestinian people, peacefully protesting, and we are absolutely committed to continuing that, and we are absolutely delighted that our trade union partners are continuing to support us in that fight back, because we know that that is the right thing to do, and that is something we have to continue fighting for. We also work with a partner organisation, No Way to Treat a Child campaign. We've currently launched an action with them, so people should look out for that, which is campaigning around the impact on children. We've heard from our partners today on this call about the huge impact that this is having on children and young people in Gaza, but also across the West Bank. And we really, really do need to keep fighting back against that. And that e-action will be shared in the chat. So please do sign up to that and do keep supporting what we are doing. And Neha, you have talked about the BDS campaign. Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions is a peaceful campaign organised and called for by civil society in Palestine. It's something we should all get behind. The Barclays action is really important at the moment. We should all be looking at whether us as individuals or whether our trade unions have any links with Barclays, and if we do, we should be calling on them to leave and to boycott Barclays until they end their complicity with what is happening for Palestinian people currently. We do have our next national protest on the 30th of March. Again, Nahal, you talked about the importance of people being on the streets, and we've heard from our Palestinian friends about the impact that has. It is imperative that we all take to the streets. We must not be silenced by a government that is trying to silence us. So please do encourage your trade union members to get along to those national demonstrations. They have a huge impact. They are the most peaceful protests that I have been on, despite the fact that this government tries to call them hate marches. So please do ensure that you get along on the 30th of March, that you get your trade union banners there, that we are all speaking out and calling for a permanent ceasefire and for humanitarian aid for the people in Gaza currently. And also, please make sure that your branch is affiliated and that you encourage your members to join the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. We have seen a massive growth in membership, but we need more members. We need more people speaking out. We need more people saying that we need a permanent ceasefire, that we need that humanitarian aid. And the final thing that I want to say is this, and we've heard this from our Palestinian friends here in the room, and I'm very grateful to them for giving up their time tonight. I'm very grateful to our trade union partners for speaking out tonight. I'm very grateful to you, Nihal, for chairing this tonight. But this did not begin on the 7th of October. Our Palestinian friends have suffered decades of oppression and dispossession. So we have to keep speaking out. We have to keep speaking about what is happening for them. We have to keep putting pressure on our government to call for the permanent ceasefire, but actually much more than that. We have to get a long-lasting peace and justice for our Palestinian friends, because that is what they deserve. So I thank everybody that has been here tonight. I call on you to go back to your trade union, to say we need to do more, and to keep fighting for justice and peace for Palestinians.
Thank you, Louise, for that really powerful message. At the end of every demonstration, we always say, we'll be here tomorrow, we'll be here the next day, we'll be here for as long as it takes until Palestine is free. Thank you so much to all of our panelists tonight for some really powerful and inspiring, testimony. I don't know about all of you, but these days it often feels to me like there are so many reasons to feel, hopeless and angry, and like, from Grenfell to Gaza, some children's lives will always matter and some children's lives just won't. And I think as educators, we feel these injustices so deeply, going back to what Emma was saying at the beginning about seeing, the faces of all the children that we've ever taught, while, we're seeing the horrific images coming out of Gaza at the moment. And while our government is refusing to do even the bare minimum and call for a ceasefire, that task falls to us, the solidarity movement, the trade union movement, movements that have always answered the call of the Palestinian people. In 2 weeks' time, on Saturday, March the 30th, it is Land Day in Palestine. Land Day commemorates the events that took place on March the 30th in 1976, when the Israeli police shot and killed 6 Palestinians as they were protesting the Israeli government's expropriation of Palestinian land. The 1976 protests were a result of mass collective action across historic Palestine, which saw Palestinian communities resisting not only the theft of land, but also other settler colonial policies of erasure and elimination. These demonstrations were met with serious aggression and violence, and in addition to the 6 demonstrators killed, hundreds were injured and hundreds more were arrested. And since then, March 30th, Land Day, has become a major commemorative date in the Palestinian political calendar, and a really important event in the Palestinian collective narrative, one that emphasizes Palestinian resistance to settler colonialism and sumud, which translates as steadfastness. And so in that spirit, we will be marching again in central London on Land Day on Saturday, March the 30th. As always, we march in the name of hope, in the name of courage, and in the name of the next generation of Palestinian children, a generation who will return to their homes, who will never know the horrors of war, and who will be able to live and learn and one day create new life in their historic homeland. We need as many people as possible on the streets that day. So please join us on Saturday, March the 30th in central London, and add your voice to the billions around the world who are calling for freedom and justice for the Palestinian people. In the intervening 2 weeks, there are also hundreds of actions across the country led by local Palestine Solidarity campaign branches. Please go on the PSC Twitter or Instagram or Facebook to see more details for those. And, please join your local actions as well as mobilising for the big national march in a couple of weeks' time. I just want to end by thanking all of our panelists again. It's been such an honour and such a privilege to have you here with us today. And I hope that we can all leave feeling more renewed and sort of, more hopeful that one day soon we will see a free Palestine. Thanks very much, and I hope everyone has a good evening.